I think the neighborhood itself wants to remain Westchester, wants to remain smaller homes and duplexes and triplexes, and that's how it wants to be. That's why people live here.
With median rents over $2,500, California has the highest rent of any state in the country. In Los Angeles, just under half of the city's rents are over $3,000 a month.
The cheapest 2-bedroom in Villas at Sausalito, where my sister lived a mere almost 3 years ago, is going for $4,600 now, which is, I think, a $1,200 jump from when my parents originally started paying it.
The state of California has tried to combat these high housing costs by requiring cities to develop new housing.
But this year, considering the housing crisis that we're currently in, and I'm not just talking about the homelessness crisis, I'm also talking about the affordability crisis and the supply of housing crisis. California is requiring that cities find new ways to allow housing, which cities typically restrict by single-family zoning, which means it's illegal to build anything besides a single-family residence. So this plan would require cities to adjust their zoning to permit the construction of apartment buildings.
But residents haven't all been quick to accept this.
Supposed to be an informational meeting turns contentious.
Stop or I'm shutting the meeting down.
I live right behind those places.
I know, they're horrible.
No parking.
If it becomes a bunch of high-rises, why am I living here? I mean, the charm of it's gone.
At the center of one of those fights is Loyola Marymount University. The college sits on some of the most expensive land in the country, but its students also come from some of the nation's wealthiest families. So does the fight for affordable housing even matter to them? It depends who you talk to.
So the Student Worker Program was pretty much founded off of a student who went up to one of the Jesuits over at the Jesuit community, asking if he could work for them in exchange of, getting his tuition paid. And now what the program offers is getting your housing and your meals covered and, prior to registration. But in return, we do have to work. I was already considering staying, applying for housing on campus for my sophomore year. Kind of already had it in mind, you might have to take out another loan. Leading up to the decision letters coming out, I just felt, that weight on my back, and I was lucky enough to get in. Now I consider the program, as my second family here on campus.
If you look at it simply, the housing supply is affected by basic economics. So there is a limited supply and there is high demand, so the prices have to increase. Right now, as the population grows and the supply doesn't do much to grow with it, the prices are going to continue to rise as we've been seeing for years.
20-year-old girls, this is an insane view.
Yeah.
I think about it all the time, and I'm just like, this is not realistic, this is not real life. This is $3,900 a month, not including utilities or anything. So I went from paying $1,500 to almost $2,400, which is quite the jump, especially in my parents' eyes. Without them, I don't know what I'd be doing. They pay for my whole life. But we were desperate because school is starting. I'm from out of state. It's not like I can just go stay at my family's house and commute in. So my parents were like, we just have to do what we have to do. Originally, me and my roommates from my sophomore year, we tried to live on campus. We got a Tendrick apartment on the first floor, facing the basketball court. Tendrick is also the quiet apartments, and personally, I'm kind of loud. My roommates were all a little rambunctious, and we were just like, hey, this probably might not be the best fit for us. So we kind of sat down and did a full financial breakdown of how much we'd be paying to live on campus and how much we'd be paying to live off. And we realized that we'd be paying almost identical to live in Tendrick than we would for the four of us to live off campus in Playa Vista with an extra bathroom and nicer amenities, basically. I honestly feel like I couldn't enjoy like those first 2 months of summer because I was just like hoping and praying. Every morning I would look to see on my LMU email, did I get something from housing? My mom called housing. You know, they weren't able, like, you know, you have high likelihood, but we can't guarantee you this and that. So it was a struggle. All of my other roommates were like, you know what, this is just too much. I can't just sit and wait for LMU and then I have to pivot and, you know, pull all these strings. But my mom and my dad were like, yeah, like we really can't like afford for you to just, you know, be on an apartment. So they told me that I had to wait on the wait list for as long as possible. And I did. And I had to pay rent for the first month at my apartment that I never have stepped foot in. I never lived at. I just had to pay for it because in August, if I didn't have anywhere to move, I would be in a terrible position. Welcome to, look at, we have our view here. We have a Dodger dog on the bed. UV6, we've decorated here, as you can see. I like decorating my room. Yeah, price is definitely an issue when it comes to housing, and I think that's why they were so like imperative on me staying here because, you know, like you can make payments at LMU for housing, for tuition, but you can't make a payment on rent, right? It's due once a month, and you know, there's no if, ands, or buts about it. And my parents, we live very check to check, so it's like they have their rent. I have a little brother who's in like Catholic school, so they have another tuition on top of mine, and then you can only imagine like adding extra, you know, roughly like $2,000 for an additional rent.
So you say Westchester would be best if kept unchanged?
Why not? It hasn't been changed for 35 years. I mean, there's been some changes, but not what I call major changes, where the charm and the reason you live here is gone. And I think that's something you young people don't get yet, because you haven't had roots yet. When you start to grow roots in your life, and you have kids, and you have family, and it becomes different. Because where you live becomes more than just a place where you fall asleep and brush your teeth. It becomes a place
where you show up to things like this, correct?
You're going to raise a family in that?
Yes. There you raise your family
with a dog and a cat and a wife and 2 kids.
Everyone wishes that they can have a single family house, but unfortunately we can't afford that anymore, so that's the only option.
Well, finding housing is rarely easy, but in LA, it's getting harder for almost everyone. And the residents who found it don't want to give it up.
These meetings are scheduled to happen every single month. I am sure that people are going to continue to show up to them. The location is different every time, but the Westchester Playa Neighborhood Council will update on this. So if you want to express your opinion on the future of Westchester, that's where you can get involved.